Professor Beardsall, you were the moderator of the steering committee of the World Council of Churches Faith and Order Commission that is preparing plans to commemorate in 2025 the 1700th anniversary of an ancient Christian gathering, the Council of Nicaea, way back in 325. What was Nicaea, and why does the World Council of Churches need to celebrate it today?
Good question. Nicaea was the very first council that brought together Christians from all around the world to meet together, to make decisions, to get to know one another. And it came only 2 decades after the church had been very persecuted by the Roman Empire. So the church had looked very scattered and broken only 2 decades before. But thanks to the Emperor Constantine, who found favor with the Christian churches, he declared that he would like the gathering to happen. He facilitated it, and he permitted these the bishops from every corner of what was then known of the known world to come together and have these important conversations. They issued in documents, including perhaps most famously what we call the Nicene Creed. So a statement of faith that would kind of bind all Christians to each other. So it's important for us today because it represents really a foundational moment for the Christian church, which went on to become a global community and still is. And there are things we can learn about how they worked, what they learned from each other, what they believed, and we continue to believe today that'll help us perhaps in our struggle to be the churches faithful in the world today.
And what would you say are the key things that we can learn today from the Council of Nicaea?
Well, I think certainly the creedal statement still has a lot of power for Christians around the world, not for all Christians. And so we can learn from each other what's important about a statement, about who God is, and that is that orients us towards God and how Jesus Christ is the one who God sends to us to be the salvation of humankind, and that creed has rich resonances that we can still mine. But I also think, perhaps more importantly, in my mind, it's important to understand that these people met together to try to work out differences, and they succeeded for the most part in forming a community that was able to overcome a lot of social, cultural, and theological differences. And I think there are so many broken places in the world today that need that kind of energy and experience. I hope we can help people think about how we overcome difference today.
You mentioned the role of the Emperor in facilitating the council. There are some people who might say that this represented too close an association between the church and the structures of power, and this is something today that we need to question. How would you react to that? Well,
it's a great question, and I think it's one that we'll take up in a very lively way at our commemorations throughout 2025. It's important because for some people, the fact that the Emperor Constantine recognized something powerful in Christianity and wanted to help facilitate its life and growth made Constantine a saint. So some churches celebrate him as a great gift of God to the church, but others, as you say, take a very critical view and say, what was the state doing in the middle of the life of the church, and how has that impacted how churches have related to the state ever since? And I think we can't deny that all churches have some relationship to the state, whether it's hostile or partnership or some kind of critical solidarity. And what does it mean for Christians to live in a world that has politics? Because politics is the way we organize our lives. So I think it'll create some great conversations for people.
The centerpiece of the World Council of Churches activities in 2025 is to be what's called a 6th World Conference on Faith and Order. But what is a World Conference on Faith and Order, and why is this important?
Right. Well, yes, and why is it sixth, right? So the first World Conference on Faith and Order took place in 1927. It was before the World Council of Churches was formed. It was a gathering of Christians who sought to not only to have Christians kind of get along in the world and get along in their mission and maybe cooperate more, but they said there are deeper issues for us. We've been divided by our faith and then by our order, or the way we structure ourselves. And so the first conference started by asking questions about what can we say in common? Where are we really divided in our faith? And then what can we say about how we organize ourselves, and how can we understand better ways to overcome our differences and overcome our disunity? Because the founders of that first conference really believed that a Christian church divided could not make a credible witness in the world. And then there have been 4 world conferences since then, the last one being in 1993, each of them seeking to name what some of the important theological issues and issues for the churches are in their own time. So this 6th World Conference will try to confront the issues that face us today with some of those same questions about our faith and how we live our lives as churches and how we can better call one another to Christian unity.
And what do you think those issues are that we face today that the conference will need to discuss and collaborate on, and what outcome are you hoping for?
Well, we've divided our kind of thought around our concepts our themes into 3: faith, unity, and mission. And so we in each category, we're hoping to reflect on what can we say together about our faith. Does this Nicaea moment call us to reconsider what we can more deeply, how our faith resonates in our lives together, and how our faith calls us to unity? The unity section will ask us to think about the fact that we still are divided churches after many years of conversation, but what have we learned about each other? Are there ways that we can approach one another and find fresh responses to our differences? But also looking at a global world where there's been many shifts in Christianity in the last 3 decades even, and the emergence of new churches in the global south, the decline of some of the Western European and North American churches, and what kinds of, so that we face different struggles. So how can we work for unity in these very different contexts and broaden our search for unity to include those who may not have been part of these conversations since 1927?
You recently said that a colleague that you spoke to when you explained your responsibilities in the steering committee and looking to 2025 and the World Conference on Faith and Order responded by saying, "Wow, the best ever gig, the best ever event imaginable." What do you think they were really getting at?
Well, my colleague, I think, was excited by the fact that it's not very often you get to celebrate a 1700th anniversary of anything. So partly just that a very ancient and historic event is kind of coming to prominence as something for us to resonate with and share. It was so symbolic for the life of the church. It really did orient the church to the world in its day, and we inherit that gift from so long ago, and that burden from so long ago. And I think she thought it was very exciting for me to get to be sort of in the center of the planning and the thinking about what might happen to commemorate such a rich and historic moment.
And a final question. If you were asked to describe to a Christian teenager what Nicaea is and why it is important, what would you say?
Well, it's I would say it has a kind of mythical character to it. So think of your favorite sci-fi story about an ancient, something ancient that finds itself in the modern world, and that's really what I'd say about Nicaea. It was this ancient conference at a time we can scarcely imagine. People coming from as far away as they could possibly imagine, mostly around the Mediterranean Sea, but coming together and trying to find some common ground with one another and trying to say what was deep in their own hearts around what they believed, and out of that producing a way of speaking about God and about Jesus and the Holy Spirit, the Trinity, a way of working in the world that to some extent still lives with us today. And so it's a promise from the past that lives on in the present and into the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.